Welcome to our first video in this How to Play BattleTech series. The intention of this video is to show you the supplies you need to play and to give a brief overview of what a standard game of BattleTech is like. Outside of a willing opponent to play with, you will need a pair of 6-sided dice. This is a minimum, more pairs can come in handy. Map sheets. The larger the game, the more you will need. Record sheets. This is where you record and access various mech data throughout the game. It's a good idea to use a pencil and nothing permanent to mark these. And miniatures. Let's go into a bit more detail on the items we just listed. First, let's cover the dice just a bit more. From now on, we will refer to 6-sided dice as D6. At the very least, it's important to have a single pair of D6 for play. However, there are certain rules in BattleTech where having more D6s comes in handy, such as keeping a handful of white, black, and red dice to keep track of movement data each round, or having multiple pairs of like-colored dice, each pair a separate color, to roll for cluster weapon hits. Next, let's touch on map sheets. Most map sheets are typically 22 by 18 inches and include printed battlefield terrain overlaid with a hex grid. Normally, a guide to determine how many map sheets to use is one map sheet per 4 mechs. That count includes total mechs from all players. So, for instance, if player A has a lance of 4 mechs and player B also has a lance of 4 mechs, you would use 2 map sheets, because that is a total of 8 mechs. As a note, some map sheets are double-sized from certain map packs, such as the Alien Worlds and Tukit packs. Maps can be aligned long edge to long edge, or short edge to short edge, but not short edge to long edge for legal play. Map sheets are available for purchase from most tabletop game stores, or online from various shops, including Catalyst Game Lab's web store. Now, let's cover record sheets a little bit. Each individual mech needs its own record sheet during a game of BattleTech. Record sheets provide all important information regarding a mech's pilot, movement capabilities, armor, equipment, and heat. This is where you will mark down all damage and the fluctuating heat levels throughout the game. The main official source for record sheets is also from Catalyst's store, but there are other common unofficial areas to find them, such as the Megamech software or Flex Sheets. Next up is miniatures. BattleTech is a decades-old tabletop game, and over those many years, hundreds of mechs have been added to the roster, most of which have official miniatures from various sources such as plastic minis from Catalyst Game Labs, and metal minis from Ironwind Metals. However, one unique aspect of BattleTech when compared to most other popular miniature war games is that it is miniature agnostic. This means if there is a unique token that has a clear facing and all players are aware of the mech the token represents, it is legal. For example, after a bit of marker work, you can play an entire game of BattleTech with your mechs represented by bottle caps. Perfect! Most beautiful direwolf I've ever seen. Now that we know the supplies we need to play a game of BattleTech, let's see what we need to do to actually start a game. First, let's select our forces. If we're not playing a unique scenario, many of which can be found in official sourcebooks, players generally come to an agreement on at least 2 critical force building decisions. This is battle value, or BV, and era. BV represents the value of the pilot's skill and each piece of equipment in the mech, as well as the mech itself. The intention is that mechs of similar BV will be nearly equal in power. Most games will take place in a specific historical era. This is what will limit players to specific mechs and equipment types. BattleTech has been around for a long time and has a lot of fictional history to choose from. To aid in the force building part of the game, more recent official record sheets have the numerical BV and an icon representing the era printed on them. There is a very handy website that has information for each mech if it's unavailable on the sheet itself. located at masterunitlist.info. Those two pieces of information can typically get players by, but more restrictions can be chosen, such as limiting the number of, or types of, mechs. Once our forces are chosen, let's choose a battlefield. Let's assume we're not playing a scenario, which usually provides a guide on map creation. Typically, after determining the size of the battlefield, the players can come to an agreement on which maps to use and how to orient them. Roll off for any disagreements. Now, let's deploy our mechs. Interestingly, there is no official rules for unit deployment in the BattleTech rulebooks. This means players can come to a fair decision on how to deploy their forces. This step is completely up to the players to decide on. Roll off for any disagreements. Now that our mechs are on the field, we have our record sheets ready, and our dice are in hand, it's time to play. Each round of BattleTech has 6 phases. The initiative phase, where players roll off to determine who goes first. The movement phase, where players alternate moving their mechs around the field. The weapon attack phase, where players have their mechs try to blast each other apart. The physical attack phase, where mechs try to punch, kick, or tackle their opponents. The heat phase, where each player reviews the actions they had taken this round to determine if each individual mech had taken or lost heat that round, marking the heat levels on their record sheets. And the end phase, where various actions and effects are resolved before the next round of play. That's it for this basic introduction to BattleTech. In our next video in this series, we will cover the movement phase in depth. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and come back for the next. If you did have a good time, please like and consider subscribing, and maybe share with others who might enjoy it as well. And remember, like the Major always says, information is ammunition.